Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Apologies for the delay. We had to make a reschedule, but here we are. China Talk, episode 41. I actually believe we're back on track with our episode numbers. So this is actually 41. Again, I'm Froskin. I'm going to be your host. Joining me is going to be our panelist. It's going to be Kelsey Moser from The Score, Drexen from Esports Heaven, and Razzleplasm. Raz, what are you doing now?
Laying in bed. That's what I'm doing.
That is the best
no, I'm just
occupation.
doing quite a bit of things.
We made Raz get out of his sick bed. He's actually dying right now, but we don't care. I have no consideration for his feelings or his health.
And that's because we have a lot to talk about.
The truth
So-
is, we tried to find
EDG.
someone for the fourth box, but we couldn't find anyone, so
We
we just
couldn't
need to
find
answer
anyone
the
that
call.
fit. We were just like, do we want pyrotechnics? Like, no.
This is basically EDG.
Basically. I tried to find a picture of Palm, but it was just taking way too long to Google search. I would think that my Google would know my habits by now, but it kept giving me chess pieces. I was like, this is bullshit. Anyway, big news in China. We had our third place match, as well as our finals match between LGD and EDG. We also had the IET tournament, which was a clusterfuck. But I'm sure we'll talk about it
It's an
anyway.
ongoing clusterfuck.
So the three events is we had Invictus Gaming versus Snake, and then we had LGD versus EDG, and obviously we now know who's going to qualify for MSI for the Chinese region. We actually know all the qualifying teams for MSI. It's going to be TSM, Fnatic, I'm totally
Not
spacing.
Korea.
Oh, that's right. Korea hasn't finished their playoffs yet. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
They're basically
China now.
SKT and G from Korea. and then-
AHQ, the Turkish team, the
Sheepisk.
Shikbisk. I can never.
Sheepisk.
And EDG, we don't know who
One of
it's
them
going to be
turkey
from
birds.
Korea. Who's you guys' money on for Korea?
My money's on GE, but I want SKT to win, so. But I think
Same.
GE is a higher chance of winning.
I think it's going to be SK Telecom.
I'm with Kelsey. I think it's going to be SKT.
I think it's
As long as
GE,
they use
but
Faker and... I don't know, they only ever used Faker and Bengi together, though, in the semifinals, so I don't know if they'll use Faker and Tom together.
They used
If I remember
Faker and
correctly.
Tom together for one game during
This
against
Yeah.
UK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was awkward to watch. Anyway, let's talk about China. Where do you guys want to start? Do you want to start with the finals? Actually, let's not go to the finals. Let's leave that. Let's go IG versus Snake.
Yep.
So, how did we get here? For those who didn't follow it, how did we get to IG versus Snake? And why was this match important, Kelsey? I think you actually wrote an article about why I should actually give a fuck.
So this match is actually the least important in terms of increments for the amount of points the teams get to qualify for Worlds.
Didn't I just ask you why this match was important? You immediately opened up your statement with, this
Well,
match doesn't matter because...
She's opening
Well,
with the butt.
I'm saying that it has the least incremental difference. Like the fourth place team gets 80, and the third place team gets 100, as opposed to like 100 to 200 for second and third, and then 200 to 300 for second and first. But the thing is, okay, that both Invictus Gaming and Snake had kind of like a really, really lame quarterfinal, and then they just got crushed in the semifinal. So like they wanted to prove that they were good, and that was like the point of this series.
Who? Snake and Invictus were both
They
trying
Yes.
both got 3-0'd in the semifinals, yeah.
Yeah, they both got 3-0'd in the semifinals, and Vici Gaming kind of choked, and King gave Snake a run for their money, but their compositions were awful, so everyone knew that like Snake was still gonna win. So it's just
They're
kind of
saying
like
they're
this
awful
is the
'cause they used King
one.
5 times.
They had no wave clear, but you know neither did EDG in the finals, so whatever.
Okay, who won? And why did they win?
Invictus Gaming won.
Okay,
And
are we surprised?
no,
Why not?
because Snake team fights, and what does Snake do when they get out team fought? The answer is nothing. So,
That's actually a really good summary of the whole
if
series.
Invictus Gaming can team fight better than Snake, Snake has really no course of action to turn to.
And not to
going forward.
mention, like, they felt like their drafts were fucking terrible, too. Like, they had nothing they could do to punish kids' jinx, like, right from the get-go. Like, they had nothing to
What
engage
is this
in.
an
You just-
issue of drafting? Why do you think Snake's weak in drafts?
Well, because they didn't have an answer to an immobile carry, and Kid was able to, like, just go ham on his Jinx, like, right off the bat. And I was like, okay, that's weird. I mean, I guess...
Didn't
Is that an
IG
issue
get, like...
of champion pool, though? Is that an issue of just the coaching staff? Like, do they just not have an answer in their respective, like, capabilities of picking a certain champion, or did they just not pick it?
I don't think it's entirely... I don't think it's entirely based on champion pool, but it is obviously a problem. Like, Baka's still only good on one champion. And Crystal only performs well when the team like works around him on like 2 or 3 champions, so it is part of the issue, but I don't know, I think a lot of it is just lack of insight into IG, and I also don't think they expected Kid to pull out champions like that, so I guess that could also be part of it. It was just like, it was just really unintuitive.
The other thing is they did have some lockdown, but the thing is that IG is usually good about picking like really well to protect. Like they got the Janna Gragas combo. Like, why do you ever let that through? You know what I mean? If you pick Janna and Gragas, you can pick whatever you want with that, and they'll be super safe.
Why do you think that's so strong?
You have 2 forms of disengage, and like Gragas is a massive beef wall. And Janna like provides a lot of shields and like a lot of safe mobility and knockback and peel. So like you have so much peel, and then Gragas is a disgusting tank line with really good engage. So you're just like super safe.
Wouldn't you just pick like a hard engage, or like a pick comp? Like wouldn't you pick Thresh into Janna as a counter, and then maybe take someone like Rek'Sai, who's just gonna offer as much beef as Gragas, as well as the ability to also engage when Flash is up?
Well, like, again, Janna and Gragas are going to counter that with their disengage tools. Especially if you have, like, 2 of them, you can just completely reset fights almost as much as you want, so...
So you're saying that there's no stronger reset than Gragas and Janna in the game?
Right.
And is that super effective against a team that 5v5s a lot like Snake?
Yeah, especially because they pick Nunu all the time, right? And that's like a direct counter to Nunu, especially because like, what is Nunu gonna do? Like, oh, I'm gonna start ulting. Oh, no, just kidding. Good job. Woo. So all the zoning that Snake
their drafts,
did.
and how many times did IG abuse this, and did they abuse any other compositions or combinations of champions?
Well, the second time Snake actually banned Gragas, and they early picked Janna, so they learned a little bit, but then IG kind of adapted, and they were able to pick the Lulu. So that's like kind of some disengage, and not really disengage, but like reset, if you know what I mean, teamfight reset. So they also brought like some protection. It's really good with hyper carries because it also provides some mobility, so the synergy with Jinx is like pretty high. So they had other answers, and they had the Nautilus that has like pretty good slows and a little bit of zone control as well. So
Drex and Raz.
Yeah, not to mention the game that they took away Janna was the game that Crystal played Draven, and then they just like dove him over and over, and like he was literally a non-asset in the game, so it didn't matter anyway. It was basically a hyper-fed Jinx that didn't really need the peel versus a Draven that couldn't do anything and was forced into a like a desperate Blade of the Ruin King first build. So yeah, as soon as IG got that taken away, they immediately adapted and just essentially removed the main threat from Snake, and they just looked like way more prepared.
And even, again, in that second game, their only real option for, like, lockdown was going to be the Gnar ultimate into a wall. So that was, like, the only way to really get Kid's Jinx, like, locked down at all. I think they played, like, a Sejuani in later games and stuff that they had. Like, they tried to adapt a little bit, and I think the Sejuani was the game they won, yeah. So, but then, like, the 4th game, they went right back to letting Gragas through, so...
But in the 3rd game also, like, yeah, they won that game, but it was also, like, a really, really weird and poorly executed, like, I almost want to say, like, experiment.
Like, split push? Like, they tried to do...
like, I think he did really good. I think Zeta actually did a good job initially, just because he was able to take the inner turret really early. But the problem was that I think they're just so attuned to team fighting that they tried to fight things near the Dragon Pit that they probably should have just let go and just shove the turrets more. And,
yeah,
they didn't do that.
recognized when Snake first picked Sejuani that like it was going to be a little bit trickier. So they immediately went for the Janna, which was actually up for them that game, and then they went for the Azir. So like they had, again, Azir is a reasonable form of disengage, but you don't want to always use that for disengage, right? Because then you're missing out on other options in fights and other damage on a damage source. So you don't always want to use that for disengage. But the idea is that they had disengage, they had some zoning, they actually picked away the Nunu, so they could get, in theory, like, just go for free objectives and also go for split push because they had the Nunu Jinx, and just get turrets really, really fast. And they also brought the Kale. But they built the Kale weird for, like, split pushing because they built Luden's Echo Kale, which, in theory, if you just want to get towers, you would just build, like, the Hurricane anyway, right? So I don't know. That's weird.
Do you think that IG just beat Snake on draft, or were there other glaring issues? Has Snake shown a higher ceiling in playoffs than they did in regular season? Did IG show that as well? And where do you guys think Snake stands definitively? Like, do you think the standings are correct that now that we had the 3rd and 4th place match, that Snake are definitively 4th?
I think I'd say that, just because I think Snake has the same problems. Like, they're really good at what they do, but they're not really flexible. And when you're not flexible in the playoff settings, it looks way more vulnerable. I mean, that's why they even had trouble with King. Coming into this set, you saw Snake just, like, try to do what they could, but at the same time, IG, like we mentioned earlier, were able to adapt even when things were shifted against them. Like, even when Snake identified the fact that this Jinx Janna was a big problem for them, and first picked Janna away to go with a kind of Jugger Draven build, like, IG were able to adapt not only in picks, but also in just the way they played. So they, like, on the fly, it wasn't even like a big deal that they got that taken away from them. They were able to instantly adapt, whereas Snake is just static in the same thing they do over and over, and if it doesn't work, they just kind of lose. I mean, I think if Snake has more LPL splits, like, maybe this won't be an issue in the future. But for right now, it kind of shows, like, just, it's kind of like the weaknesses you kind of expect for a team's first season, I suppose, into an LPL split.
Snake versus OMG, who wins?
Oh, God.
That's... Yeah, I mean,
Really? You guys
in
are going to
theory.
go with OMG after how hard they just shit the bed in draft phase? Like, we talk about how one of Snake's biggest issues is their ability to put together compositions and to not, like, adjust on the fly, and OMG have suffered in the exact same way.
At least they can play other compositions.
Yeah, the thing is Snake is just, like, so easy telegraphed. Like, you know they're going to early pick Janna and Azir if it's available, like, every single game, because Copy doesn't really have other champions. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, can hear you.
Okay, sorry. That was, like, a blip or something. Because Copy doesn't really have other champions. Ella loves, like, the amount of peel you get off of Janna. You know they're going to pick Nunu every time. It's just really easily telegraphable. The other thing is that, I mean, just, like, they don't even do it that well anymore. Like, I feel like IG was able to out-team fight them. They lose early, a lot of early objectives. Like, Snake always loses a lot of early objectives for free, in part because, like, for one thing, they don't know how to lane swap, they don't know how to react to what the other, like, they only know how to play their game. And if you throw in any variable at all, like, it completely confuses them.
It's actually a little bit harder for me to decide between OMG and Snake, just because, yeah, obviously, historically, OMG has done well in a playoff setting, but at the same time, like, even though I would slightly give the edge to OMG, maybe, like, the problem is that with the way Snake plays, OMG is kind of trying to, like, emulate that style, but I feel like Snake is a lot more comfortable with their other members being starved of gold than OMG is. Like, it's really clear that, like, Going and Leveling aren't comfortable with being starved for the for, like, their AD carry. So, and that's kind of like the style that OMG's been trying to brute force, which is not really good for them. So I think it really depends on if OMG went back to their roots, but based on the fact that they tried so hard to tunnel on this strategy that like, really doesn't suit their playstyle, I do think that just in that situation that Snake has the edge, just because they're more comfortable with it. and that's like their entire team's foundation. Whereas in OMG, it's just an unfamiliar side thing to them that they've never really done before.
I do want to point out Drex's earlier statement about Snake needing a couple more splits. I think the team, if anything, has proven that they can make necessary changes when they feel it's fit. Like going into this split, they were pretty raggedy. They were not looking good, and then they made changes to Reborn and Colin. Right now, they're doing the same with Crystal. They've already made the changes to Martin. I'm not sure if it's going to stick, but with how Martin played...
Supposedly it's because Crystal needs a break, quote-unquote. So,
okay.
We'll see.
Well, I mean...
Martin did really
Nick
well, though.
Needed a bit...
Yeah, Martin's doing really well.
Nick needed a break from Gambit, and so they
the caveat being that they lost to WE, but Martin did really well.
Okay. So speaking of Martin, and adjustments, there's also a lot of rumors going around on OMG as far as making roster changes and adjusting and tweaking those things are. And I know, Kelsey, you make that face because it's like, oh, we're going to talk about roster rumors on China.
Yay.
Everyone wants to talk about roster rumors.
I'm okay talking about roster rumors.
But
just
let's set the stage. First and foremost, this happened every single split, between splits with Chinese teams. There are always roster rumors. There are always crazy changes. Right. Nothing is ever set in stone. Your sources don't mean shit, and a lot of the time they don't even know what's going on because you won't know until the very last second. Like, think about how Name and Uziai's roster switch, how last minute that was, and the consequences that it held. So that's just my big disclaimer as far as Chinese roster rumors. Shit gets crazy when this much money is involved. Nothing is confirmed until literally they're sitting down and playing. That said, let's talk roster rumors. So what have we heard about OMG?
A lot of stuff. So let's just lay out all the random things that we've heard.
I've heard Going's gone.
Yeah, we've heard the possibility that Going is going to leave, so that's a possibility. We've heard that because Cool has received an offer from Vici Gaming before, that offer will be extended again, and since now OMG didn't do so well, he'll probably, people think he'll take it.
Not to mention they were using Jiang in IET, so...
Yeah, I mean, they used Xiang all last offseason too, so...
That's true.
That was a symptom of Cool considering his options anyway, so it's possible that that's where we are again. And the other thing we've heard is that if Cool and UZI are actually pretty good friends, so if Cool and UZI leave, if Cool leaves, UZI will go with him. So that's another rumor we've heard. So the one rumor that is something that's concocted. This is the worst nightmare I've ever If someone, this would haunt me in my dreams as a big Loveling fan. So if people don't know this about me, is that if I'm biased toward one player, it's Loveling, for sure. I keep it in this little closet and I try not to trot it out. But Going retires, Cool goes to Vici Gaming, and Loveling becomes this thing that he's always resisted. He becomes the slave of UZI, literally sitting in bottom lane, playing support utility style junglers, which he's also terrible at, so he just looks awful in general. Yeah, this is living out the rest of his career until he's trotted off with Lucky for missing Smite at Worlds.
Oh god. Please don't even put those two in the same caliber.
So, do you think that there's any validity to these comments? And if so, what would be the best roster change that you guys would adjust to OMG to save them? Or do you think that this is really just they need time and they need a different support staff? Do you think that this roster is salvageable, this all-star, Super Saiyan?
I don't think Uzi is suitable for OMG, period. I mean, if he stays on the team, then the team's eternally going to be about him, I feel.
The biggest thing is if you guys saw, the translated interview of Going did an interview after the IET match where he talked about some of the roster change. He said they're just, all experimenting with stuff. Because the IET roster they used was Going, Review, Shiyang, UZI, and Amazing, and Review and Amazing are from OMG. Which is their LSPL team that just barely failed to qualify for the promotion to LPL. So, his explanation was they'd been performing well at OMD, so he wanted to give them a chance to try to like prove themselves. He also said that one of the big problems is that everyone wants to shot call, which no one saw that coming, right? Like, ever. Because UCI was a shot caller for Starhorn Road Club. Cloud reportedly disagreed with a lot of Loveling and Gogoing's calls all last year, so... And arguably the only voice on that team that doesn't want to shot call is Cool, because apparently his personality and like his demeanor is too soft-spoken for the role, but that doesn't mean he agrees with everything that's being said either, right? So you're in this situation where there are a lot of opinions, and no one agrees, and no one trusts the other person to make the best calls. So that's a big problem, and just like, it's almost like, given that situation, you have to make a roster move.
So where do you change it? You change UZI? You put Sand back on the team?
To an extent, I think we've also proven that that roster doesn't work either. Like, they get to this point and then they choke. So I don't know.
I think they need to... Yeah, everybody's going to say UZI. But I also think they need to put in Xi'an. And the reason why I'm saying that, like for the support position, by the way, the reason why I'm saying that is
what about Amazing?
The thing with Amazing is that he's also someone who wants to shot call. That's been his role on OMD. And I think he's amazing as a player. Oh, wow, okay, whatever. God damn it.
Also, just so people know, this definitely isn't the jungler Amazing. That's
Yeah.
a white person.
That was one of the Reddit comments. It was, oh, Amazing is the first player to play in all 3 regions. Good job.
Hey, calm down. Chaos is trying to get into LSPL.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. Have you seen that team? Holy moly.
Oh,
I actually looked through those rosters. Like, I looked through those players. None of those players are good. Like,
and aside on the Roar roster, like, I looked at that roster, and I wasn't even looking at Chaos, okay? So Chaos fans, calm down. I was like, Yao? Why would anyone ever hire Yao again?
Yao was offered to the team when we were first initially in Shanghai. We were trying to get Yao, because the big problem for Roar is that we've never had a top laner. Like, we were unsure if we wanted to have a Chinese jungler or a Chinese top laner, so we had, like, all of these options looking as we were, like, scouting and looking through players in Shanghai. And the guy who the Roar management uses to connect as far as, like, helping him manage players and do rotations has been so hard on Yao. So that does not surprise me that they head back to China and that they're finally able to sign that contract.
oh, Jesus.
That shit's been, like, pushed like crack.
And then, like, Energy Pacemaker F players.
Oh my god. For anyone who doesn't know what Energy Pacemaker's F is, because I don't know. I didn't know what it was. Like, I know, like, there were so many rosters for Energy Pacemakers, and the fact that there was one called F for Fearless, I was confused about. So I looked into it, and it was a team in Taiwan or Hong Kong, and they wanted to qualify for the LMS season, and for the qualifiers, they went 0-11. Like, that team was absolutely horrible. Every single player on that team, especially the jungler.
Okay, so Chaos pulls a miracle carry into LPL. Yes, no, okay.
Godspeed, Chaos.
Good
Good
job.
luck, Spicy.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
Spicy is actually the best.
Spicy's the best player
team.
on that team.
The thing about Spicy though is that like he was an okay LSPL mid laner. Like,
Well, he
I don't know.
qualified his team for LPL, but he definitely was not the hard carry for that. He's more of like he plays assassins, but he's kind of like a calm.
Yeah, and this was like a while ago anyway. That they qualified with him.
Watch them play in the same qualifier groups as Showtime. So watch that happen.
Godspeed, Chaos. Good luck.
I love Go Eat. Can I just say that I love Go Eat right now? I actually think he's pretty good, but anyway.
Okay.
That was a random aside.
We've put the Roar hype down. I always loved it. I saw that on Reddit and like people, oh, come check out the Roar roster, and I looked at that roster. I was like, huh. Can't qualify for North American Challenger Series. Think that they can go and qualify for LSPL.
I And I actually think the players on that team right now are worse than the ones that they tried to qualify for North American Challenger with. Anyway, let's continue.
Do we have anything else to say about Invictus Gaming and Snake?
I think Invictus Gaming is looking like a really, really good team fighting team going forward. Like, I think that's going to be their style, and that's going to be the thing that they're going to pull on. Like they
Here's
did
the
the
question. Are
counter
they going to
strategy,
retain
but
their Korean acquisitions? Because we're now at the halfway point. Or do you think we're going to see some Koreans go home?
I think certain Koreans want to stay. Like, according to the interview with WE, like, LynnMin interviewed Mystic and Spirit, and they actually really like their current roster. They actually think their current roster is really good.
Yeah, so does the majority of Reddit.
And that they'll do really well next split, and the only team they think they'll have trouble beating is EDG next split. So, actually, like,
that's
apparently,
Wow.
that was Spirit said that. Mystic's like, oh, maybe fourth.
Wasn't Spirit also the same guy that was quoted in saying that Hot Shot was as good mechanically as... Who said this? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, this was Shy.
That was Shy?
He didn't say Hot Shy. He said,
But you know which quote I'm thinking about, right?
He thinks North American players are mechanically good. It's just the strategy.
This is something that I have learned about Korean players, is that they're very polite.
Yeah.
They're very polite.
This isn't him saying, like, he's saying that he thinks they can be all teams.
I understand.
Yeah, I know
like...
what you're saying, that he's being polite to the Chinese players and everyone else. But I think that the WE organization will probably recognize that changes need to be made. But I think that it's safe to say, though, that Spirit is comfortable staying.
Okay, what about the Kakao and Rookie? What about Dade? What about Looper? What about Pawn?
I mean, it's just the thing is that the contract buyouts are really big. Like,
I don't know if they extended by split contracts or they took them by year.
Most of the contracts are annual, at least, I believe.
Yeah.
So
one thing I'll say about Korean players, they are pretty much Superman in the sense that they're extremely polite, overpowered, and you really just want them to fail. Like, that's all you ever do. I just want to put that out there.
Rude.
I just thought of that right now.
Yeah, I thought it. I mean, the Chinese hold them in this regard too. It was so funny when I read the translated LGD article on Liquid Legends, and they were like, "Oh well, we had a disadvantage early on because our Koreans came later than other teams' Koreans." It's like that was like a legitimate reason. That just sounded like so belittling to the Chinese natives. Like, oh my God. Oh man.
You gotta order them and put them together.
Well, to be fair,
yeah, Koreans came in late. I mean,
well, to be fair, like, the Korean upgrade in the top lane over their Chinese top laner was really significant for LGD. So, they went from 17 would have been worse than a Luca this split, I think.
I could see that, especially at the current meta for sure.
Hello.
So 17 would not have done well.
If the Scion rework never happened, who knows?
Okay, let's talk about EDG versus LGD. So,
do you want to talk about Martin briefly, Raz?
No. Oh, if Raz wants to.
I was gonna
God
say
damn.
if we
At
cover
some point he
IET
was
after
talking
this,
about
it'd make more
Martin.
sense.
Well, we're gonna talk about IET anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, we'll talk about it during IET.
Okay, so the finals. Obviously, EDG wins. Kelsey, Drexen, Raz, what was the final score?
3-2 in favor of EDG.
Okay. So let's talk about... We didn't think that it was going to be that close. I think we predicted that it was going to be like a 3-1.
Yes.
We went to 5 games. Why did we go to 5 games? And is that... Because it went to 5 games, is it fair to say that this was a very close series? Because we talked about how World Elite took EDG to 5 games, but it wasn't a close series. Was the LGD versus EDG series different?
Yes.
Why?
I think it was.
Why?
I
wanna say, I think
because
that-
LGD has really good players in all positions.
Yeah, and also I think that
Except, well, I mean, most positions.
I feel like both teams did something a little bit different in this series, and I think that LGD, it looked closer because they actually took risks with their compositions and they paid off, and they're like, they wouldn't necessarily take teams that were like really good at team fighting against EDG, but they would choose like really late scaling teams and then like hold out and then win with those. And so maybe that just made it like seem closer, but the games like had I would say the game length was a lot longer. Like it took a lot longer for the teams to close out.
My feeling is that they kind of butted heads in the early game, and EDG actually got like some pretty good pick and kill trades, but LGD usually got the objective advantage.
Yeah, like I remember, I think it was the second game where Acorn roamed like super early and got a solo kill or whatever.
And
But
LGD,
then when LGD did that, sorry, and then when EDG did it, LGD was like replied with a dragon almost immediately. So they got a lot more out of their early picks, I think. And so it just showed like that LGD was like really smart and actually like deserved to be a top 2 teams. Like there's no way if like Snake made it to the finals, for instance, they would have been smart enough to do that kind of stuff. Like, or if they know that they're gonna not win team fights or early skirmishes, that they'll just go ahead and take something from it at least.
And I think if you look at what these teams prioritize, like LGD prioritized trying to get dragon fights and getting dragons a lot more. EDG maybe like wanted 1 dragon in a lot of their games, and then they would just kind of race against LGD getting 5 dragons. Like there were so many
but isn't that just indicative that EDG have terrible objective control?
I think
rather than saying that it's a conscious decision and choice.
Well, they were losing like dragon fights when they tried to take them against LGD, so I actually think it was an adaptation. It was like a risky adaptation though, because they had to race against LGD getting those 5, which meant that they had to like take control of Baron at like really, really risky times. And it backfired against them in a couple instances when they tried to like force plays to get around Baron to get control, but a lot of times, like, obviously it worked out for them the majority of the games, where they got the Baron, and the way that EDG uses Baron is really, really good, because they actually, I think they get more towers out of a single Baron than, like, any other team in LPL, and this has been their advantage since the patch change, is that they're able to, like, maximize their Baron buff usage in sieges.
Well,
but the problem is that
historically have always been about Baron.
Right, exactly.
So, Drexen, and this is kind of like out of the blue. So, do you agree that EDG have always been about Baron? And can you explain the difference between EDG in 2014 and the relationship with Baron and their relationship in 2015 with Baron? And how that has influenced their growth as a team?
Well, I think like a slight difference here is just that Baron did different things in 2014 than it did in 2015, but I think their priority has always been around Baron in any case. But obviously the way they went about getting Baron was a lot different in 2014 in the sense that since mid and jungle didn't apply too much pressure back in those days, it was more about just stalling out and keeping the lane shoved and like letting other people on the team take action. Whereas now, like Pawn is obviously a lot more 1v1 oriented, and Clearlove is in a meta that suits him and also is much better at his early gank pressure. So that makes it so that the way they get towards building up towards utilizing that Baron's different. Not to mention, especially in this series, they did pretty good at buffing the waves and pushing them out just because the champions picked. And I think that the way they played this, like playoffs especially, was actually interesting just because it was very. It wasn't so much it wasn't really so much everybody feeling the need to be self-sufficient. I actually think the focus on Deft was actually pretty smart, but kind of risky at the same time. Like when Koro built Face of the Mountain to help shield Deft on Sivir so that he could get up close and personal even with a short-range AD carry and like just get as many autos off as possible and still be a huge damage threat instead of just like a tower push bot. But at the same time, that also made Koro kind of squishy, and he paid for it by getting picked off quite a few times. But I don't know. The focal point on the team has been like a little bit different. Like I still think Koro's like when necessary is still really supportive style and stuff like that. But I think it worked out just because of how Deft played. The only thing I didn't like about this series is I feel like they threw Acorn on like safe champions too much. Like I think threw him on Maokai too often, just because like I think the first game he played Hecarim and he had a really good Hecarim game, and then after that I don't feel like his impact was as good as Koro's in any of the rest of the games, to be honest. But then again, I also don't think Pawn's influence was as good as Oriana's. It's gotta be
As good as Oriana's.
same shit. But yeah, so. I know I kind of like sidetracked off of the Baron point there, but I just had some thoughts.
Raz.
Sorry.
This question's for you, because you talked about how you thought Pawn was the most influential key component of EDG as a team. We remember this discussion that we had?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
We now have a series where we had an isolated incident where Pawn just got straight up bodied in the last game. I think he was dove 3 times, and he was like 0-6 on Twisted Fate. And of course, since it's the last game, EDG had to win, and Deft came up huge with the pentakill. Do you think that Pawn is still the key hinge on which EDG swings, or do you think that... Have you seen the light? Do you think that there are other factors involved in their carry? Or do you think that Pawn did carry that game?
During the season, my whole point about him my whole point about him being the most influential came down to the fact that I thought he could play multiple roles, and I thought he could play those roles. I thought he was adept at those roles. I thought he could, like, once it came to playoffs, he's like, okay, I'm not gonna troll. But so now I'm gonna make a change to my statement. Actually, I'm gonna say the exact same thing, but now it's kind of like TSM when they had Reginald. Like, I think that's what it comes down to, and the fact that he is the most influential, but in the sense that if he does poorly, it's just like, alright.
Did you just compare Pawn to Reginald? I think that's the most insulting thing you've ever said.
I kind of get where he's going with this. My thing is that, like...
Do we need to pull up the Zillion clip?
EDG...
where Reginald makes the call about the Zillion and he forces TSM to feed one after the other?
Well, I mean in a sense. The biggest thing for him is that now, like, it's quite apparent that he can only play assassins.
Hey, I don't see Pawn having a big-ass poster of him in the LPL venue, okay?
Oh my god, this is what Pawn...
It'll happen.
He's supposed to be a triple title winner, but he really needs to go to LCS now so he can be a quadruple triple winner. And he also needs to win OGN.
Oh, but I do want to add a little caveat in that, again, to reference the Liquid Legends interview, the Wayless actually said that he thinks that Pawn is the better mid laner than him, but just that since he was like ill or something, he felt that he didn't play up to the standard. But then Wayless also did say that domestically he thinks, like, just out of, like, not including any Koreans, just strictly Chinese players, that he does actually think he's the best player. I don't know how serious he was about his answer, but he does think he's the best mid laner, like, just straight up Chinese domestically. So
because he is.
No, I would agree based on the series.
So,
well,
I
don't know.
Well.
It depends. It depends on Oriana versus his other champions, I suppose. But
Yeah.
it's not like he's bad on other champions either.
So the Pawn thing. I mean, I think
It comes down to, is Pawn the carry of EDG?
no. But the thing about Pawn is that if he's feeding and they're camping him, this is what people want. This is what EDG wants anyway. Because,
Yeah,
like,
dude. Oh my god. Fucking Game 5 is Twisted Fate. You got, like, straight carried 4v5. That was great.
they want people to, like, focus a lot of attention on Pawn because then they're not paying attention to Deft while Deft farms. They're not paying attention to Quora while Quora farms.
Because people will make the comment, they're like, but Pawn was the reason why they got that Penta and they won that last team fight because he flashed forward and he hit Imp with the yellow card. The yellow card.
Didn't he
flashed forward, yellow card. It was immediately QSS'd, and then Imp walked back into the boomerang. Okay, Pawn did not cease to walk into the boomerang. Imp walked into it.
Not to mention he gated in a horrible spot. Like, he gated behind Baron and then had to, like,
Run all the way
20
around.
seconds of the team fight. And, yeah,
Meanwhile,
like, traverse the Baron pit.
Quoro and Clearlove are trying to stall by, like, going in one by one with their AoE, and Pawn's, like, walking back around the Baron.
Oh god. I will say that, like, that Pawn is an amazing,
And his
probably the best
Lulu was
assassin
so
player.
questionable.
His
Like,
Lulu was the shittiest Lulu I've seen.
his
But
like, I don't know. Zatai's
Are you
Lulu
saying
has
of all
been
time?
pretty bad. Like,
no,
What?
not at all
Ty
time.
plays an
But
awesome top lane Lulu. Are you kidding me?
He's had his top lane Lulu in the VG Gaming series was like really weird.
No, we're not going back to that series. We're staying on LGD versus EDG. Is Pawn the true carry of EDG, Raz?
No, but
Indirectly,
he can carry.
maybe.
There's always that threat. So
Jackson,
then
you're
if
next.
so if they focus Pawn, then Deft is going to carry. If they if they go for if they go for Deft, then Pawn has the potential. He's a really good player.
He has the
He's
potential, but does he carry?
Or you
Well,
could
he
just
did.
body
Uncasted.
Pawn and have Clear Love get a quadra kill and grab Deft, and Koro, Clear Love, and Deft just fucking 3v5. Throw Mako
Like-
on top of that.
Like if you give Pawn like Fizz, Cassidy, any other assassin.
The answer is
Like-
Clear Love, Raz. The
I
answer
felt
is Clear
like
Love.
Game 5 was the
Yeah.
perfect setup for how EDG works, because Pawn can straight like Darien the shit out of everything, and then like they'll they'll be able to take turrets late game, and then like they'll do the.
I mean, come on. How nervous were you watching Pawn get dove the first time, and then again the second time, and Clear Love hasn't done anything? You're sitting there, like, you're sweating, like, oh god, they're gonna take Pawn out. He's gonna be completely worthless. It's on Twisted Fate. Clear Love's not doing anything. This is gonna be classic choke. EDG. LGD's gonna win. And then suddenly,
Come on, dude.
miraculously, out of the sunset, Clear Love Road,
with his purple Rek'Sai cape,
and he gets a triple kill, and you're just like, okay. Okay, and then suddenly Koro comes out of nowhere, and he gets like a double kill. You're like, what is this?
Dude, Clear Love was king of kill streaks that series. It was great.
Is this
like,
is this
Tower Dive
2014? What's happening? I don't know what this is.
I could just see all the LGD fans are like, we got him, boys, we got Pawn! We're gonna win! And then, what was the most beautiful part of that series was like, they were doing so well, and they're like, there's only one way that we can throw this. Baron. Let's take the weakest member on our team, Chwin, and let's give him all of the responsibility. And just like the camera
They did it twice, too.
Against Edward Gaming, probably historically the best Baron team in LPL. Let's go.
just Chwin's face, and the camera like zoomed in on him, and he was just sitting there like,
Yeah. I feel like I honestly feel like the Baron, like the Desperate Baron tunnel was what lost LGD the series, to be honest.
it was pretty bad.
It was very slow. I think they had a solid chance of winning without that, but
I feel like if I were LGD's
Would've.
coach, I would put a dragon costume on the Baron, and if I were EDG's coach, I would put a Baron costume on the dragon. Be like, look, now we can win team fights in this area.
That Clear Love Baron steal.
Yep.
No one talks about that. We'll talk about the Deft Pentakill all day, and Pawn's flash gold card on Imp. But
the Darren Steele
the
was
Baron
so
steal.
like the stream.
The highlight of the series was obviously the Nunu Quadra at the very first game.
It was so funny because he didn't do anything particularly impressive, LGD. It was just really stupid.
Well, it was actually like Clear Love got them, like, knocked them into it, right? And then
Yeah,
he
he
just,
pincered
like,
them and
triggers
they were
the-
forced
yeah.
to run like into their tower.
And they got
It was just so
the,
stupid.
and then the absolute zero, it's like, quadra kill!
Yeah, but I mean, like, anyway, what I was saying about Pawn is, like, maybe he's indirectly the carry in the sense that he carries the game through being the focal point and being kind of left on his own with not as many resources as they divert towards
Was Darien the carry for Gambit?
Pawn.
Well, that's the thing.
Maybe.
Like, you could say that Darien and Pawn are the carry to an extent, but if like
You're
it gets
telling
down
me
to
on a
it's like
team with Alex Ish and Diamond that
no, I'm
Darien was
saying
the carry.
it gets right
Dude,
down
Darren
to
was
it.
legit.
You have to you have to say that like Darien. It doesn't matter how well Darien and Pawn do in lane, like as long as they're doing something and pulling attention, like to an extent that's kind of like. Like
Yeah, I mean the caveat I was trying to get at is the fact that like sometimes they'll try to like focus bottom or something, and Deft is really good at handling that. And those are the times when Pawn locks in like Cassidy and puts on his like
Counterpicks
superhero
himself.
cape and like maybe he'll go all crazy and like win the game by himself. But I mean that's what happens when you leave a Cassidy alone. Not to say that Pawn's not a great mid laner, it's just that the results he has aren't as like ridiculously crazy as everyone else thinks they are.
Okay.
So I definitely feel like Deft is the main carry of that team.
So with the assistance of Jackson and Raz, I now know that on my top 20 players of all time, I can put Pawn behind Reginald, but above Darian. Thank
above
you.
what?
I was but above Darian. I was really conflicted on this. I had no idea. I was like, maybe Pon might be able to. Now I know.
Pon is Reginald. What?
Oh man, they both are terrible at Twisted Fate. It
Hello? That gold card.
The port behind the Baron.
The port.
Actually, and also though, I do think that with more practice with Mako on engaged supports, he can also be a carry force for that team. Because his Thresh in the final game was really, really good.
This is good.
Who do you guys
So-
think was the MVP for the season? I know what Kelsey's answer is, but what do you guys think, Raz and Drexen? Like, if you had to give MVP to one player of the entire LPL split, who would you give it to?
I want to very...
Spirit.
Spirit?
Yeah.
I will acknowledge that I think...
Categories.
I want to acknowledge that I think that Spirit is the best player in LPL, but in terms of what's been done for the team, as much as I don't want to say it, it probably is Clear Love.
I gave it to Deft.
It's really close for me, just because like I've had so much criticism of Clear Love in the past, but he's really stepped it up and doesn't just kind of like wander around the jungle and not actually look at the lanes anymore. And if there's a convenient gank, he goes for it. It sounds like they're actually really good at working with him now.
We're going to put our MVP on the team
And the meta-
that barely missed relegation.
That
I
team
mean, that's
should have been
my
relegated.
thing.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
that
I'm
was
just saying, so
perfect.
how can we put the MVP? Like, yeah, Spirit is amazing, but...
Yeah, I
really
didn't say he was MVP, but I do think he's individually the most talented player. And well, maybe not. Maybe that's a stretch, just because Deft is so fucking good.
Eh,
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
I
the
said
thing.
I-
That's the,
that was my
it's-
MVP, so.
it's comparing a player that had support on his team. Like when Deft initially came on the team, it was the same old Deft, except when they finally put Mako on him. Like he's had support on the team. Spirit is essentially on a deserted island. Like it's, and he's done the most with it.
GA now.
Spirit has
Now.
legitimately won games by
Kind of.
himself repeatedly. though,
And
which
the
actually-
Chia is so confusing to me.
He's a solo queue
He's-
player. He's very
he's-
talented mechanically. If it becomes a 50-50 of just mechanically outplaying someone versus using your brain, he's got a 50-50 chance of winning that. That's
He's
amazing.
performed at Worlds a
So
lot.
inconsistent,
Solid, but
yeah.
it was nowhere near his Worlds performance. That's another thing. Granted, I mean, it might just be because of his opponents. But
I don't know. Yeah, Spirit. I think Spirit might be the best player. Like, I'm colored by watching IET last night, where like Spirit was like a mystical god of.
And you
Glory.
don't
Yeah.
think that those teams who had just gone through the playoffs and were playing around with
No,
their
no, no,
rosters,
I
subbing
totally
in Xiang,
do.
and people were
That's
just
what I
like,
mean. I'm
not
saying,
maybe
like-
giving a fuck, whereas like World Elite's like,
Yeah, I know. I'm saying like that's my perception is being colored by having just seen that. So like that's the caveat is that obviously those teams weren't like giving a fuck. So.
because you know when it actually matters is in
I-
playoffs, and if you
I
remember, the
still
first team
stand
that
by,
dropped
like,
out in playoffs were
No matter
World
who,
Elite.
I'm saying no matter
And
who I
making
think is
playoffs isn't that big of
better.
a deal because that means you just barely missed the fucking promotional tournament. I'm sorry, I'm tired of the World Elite shit. When World Elite finally
Yeah, I
fucking
know.
wins something, that's when I'll be like, yeah, World Elite, you're a good team.
Watch
When they're
them win
just
tonight.
scraping by last place, they still fucking suck.
Well, no one's saying World Elite is a good team. It just comes down to the fact that any
Yeah, there's a
chance
big
they've ever-
difference between saying Spirit is a good player and World Elite is a good team. This is the thing that I think people miss, and that's what drives me crazy. I think Spirit is a very good player. That's very legitimate. I don't think World Elite is a good team.
Yeah.
Okay.
yep, I agree.
IET?
But I still would put Deft as the MVP regardless of how good I think Spirit is, because
God
obviously
damn it.
EDG won.
One day you'll be on my side.
I'll get you next time, Gadget.
Yeah, IET, I guess.
IET, Raz, this is your time.
Yay.
Spring up. Show
The
us
only-
the way. What is IET for all of those who do not know?
It has
It's
international in the
basically-
name, but it's actually not international
It
at
says
all. So
international.
that's the first thing to learn.
it's the bathroom break for most of these teams. Finally, they've gotten
It's
out
so
of.
depressing. This is like my favorite third-party tournament last year, and now it's
Oh, it was great last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that should be noted, just clarification. So when the Chinese, they run these third-party tournaments, a lot of them are not LAN. They go and they participate in person as far as a LAN, but they're not on the tournament realm, which is
Well, they're on the tournament realm, but they're still like connected via the internet. So
yeah.
like,
Well, I was gonna explain the nicknames.
Yeah.
Because I just literally, I'm not even joking. I got all these messages last night asking me why LGD was playing with 4 subs.
It's funny.
And the joke was, if you guys didn't see it, is that LGD, they had name changed. But what kills me is I looked at Kelsey, I was like, there's a camera on the players, right? And she's
Yes.
like, uh-huh. So this person messaged me and was like, who are these players? When there was like cameras, like you could see their faces. I'm not saying he's racist, I'm just saying. I can recognize the players.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
But yeah, if we want to cover the nicknames real quickly,
Uh,
I actually knew what they were before, but there was like a nice article that came out by Carnivorous Sheep. But like before that, we have there was Big Princess. Okay, is Flame's name, and the reason why he's Big Princess is because he used to be Princess Flame, but now he's Big Princess because Wayless is Little Princess. Because I guess Wayless tried to cosplay as Flame at one point or something. He tried to dress up like he was Flame. So people started calling him Little Princess. Or I guess like Inferior and Superior Princess is also like a translation that you can use with those characters. But TBQ went back to Chuen, which by the way, his name has always stood for Taobao Chuen. So, I mean, it's not that big of a change. Taobao used to be a sponsor, but then they kind of changed it because they couldn't really fit it, so it's weird and convoluted. But Chuen is his name.
No cares about Chuen, Wayless.
Wayless, I already
Princess.
said, was Little Princess, yeah.
And
Imp is the one that's awkward. It's Little Whore. Or Little Bitch, which it's that way because every time he's in a photo, it's like used affectionately because he's a very affectionate player, and
you're a good little not the bad kind.
I've never heard
always,
little
like,
bitch or little whore.
Good little bitch.
It's so endearing, dude.
He's always like whoring himself out to other players because you see him in pictures like
there's
hugging
a compliment.
TPQ or holding hands with Deft or whatever else. So
I swear, I don't know. These nicknames.
yeah, and then
PYL.
PYL's is Little Mushroom, but it's because his nickname is actually Little Ping. Because of Little P, like Ping is like P, and there's a mushroom that's like Ping. I forget what the second character is, but so it's based off of that. So that's why PYL's a mushroom.
Little Mushroom, Little Whore, Little Princess, and Big Princess, and Chuen.
And Chuen, who no one loves enough to give a proper nickname.
We can nickname him.
They actually pushed
Let's
him
give him a
back.
nickname right now. Okay, guys.
I think Chuen is already a nickname for Big Bitch. I'm just gonna put that. Just
No, this is true because TBQ is also always whoring himself out. We'll go with Big Whore for TBQ.
Big Whore. Nice Baron Smite. IET. Raz.
Nice.
Now that we know who everyone is, explain those teams that maybe people don't know.
oh baby. Well, already I can start with Snake because anyone who looks at that team usually think it's the Crystal and the what's it called? I've messed up that joke. Well, it's Crystal and the 5 random. Well, Crystal and the Pussycats. All right. Anyways, so Crystal's
Pussycats.
Crystal's probably just taking a break,
Tears for hats.
and they're putting in Martin, and Martin is doing extremely well. And for anyone who doesn't know who Martin is, and I honestly I would expect you to not know because that his past team, Snake Honor Esports, was in the same group stage as
Esports.
ADG and Legend Dragon. I actually said Legend Dragon for once and not Lemon Dogs or Lemon like God. And so their team didn't do so well, but Martin did.
And
really
actually,
well.
they got relegated from LSPL. So when he
Yeah,
said
that's true. That's
they not only didn't do well in groups, they went on to the LSPL relegation tournament and got relegated by other shitty LSPL teams. So,
yay.
yay!
But he was the diamond in the rough. He could play champions. Maybe not the greatest champions. You look at him as like, you got to stop playing Ezreal. But
Well, now he plays Jinx and Sivir, and those are the champions that Crystal can't play, so we're good.
yeah. And even though Snake has kind of done poorly in IET, I can put it on Beast randomly playing Trundle jungle and Maokai jungle. I mean,
What is that? Why are they playing that shit? Oh my
I don't know.
god.
Want Martin to fail.
What?
His first tournament and everybody's they're giving him the flame treatment. Please stop it. Oh my
Giving him the
god.
Name treatment. Are you kidding me?
Oh my god.
It's like really risky to say anything positive about Name anymore. You just gotta keep it on the download. Just be like, yep,
What? Hello, no,
just let people get angry.
I got
It's
my
okay.
Name sticker. It's like my Name is an honor student.
Gotta keep that shit on the low in the LPL black market discussions. If you ever have an opinion on Name, just say it quietly.
Anything else about IET? Come on, that wasn't it.
Oh, okay, so
Alright.
Oh yeah,
Showtime.
Oh my god.
there we go.
Yay!
That's the highlight here.
Let's get the Showtime thing out of the way.
Who are
Yeah,
Showtime?
and provide context. Yeah.
They're actually coached by AHQ Promise.
Okay, why do I care about that?
That guy who
Who?
tried to kill himself.
Okay, that's sad.
No, remember he was the one
No,
who...
I remember. It was the
involved in the match.
scam and the
Yeah.
max
Not to be
fixing
confused
and he
with
was
Insect.
depressed and-
Yeah,
Oh my god, that was unnecessary.
that wasn't funny.
Shut up, you're
I'm
loud.
gonna have to mute my microphone.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was overboard. That was overboard. I feel like it did. To clarify, I was being a dick to Insect for being stupid, not to Promise for you know.
But, so, yeah, coached by Promise. They have, I don't know, I'm sure two of these players are Koreans, but I haven't looked at them up close, and I don't know, like, anything about them. So I'm just going to assume two of them are Koreans, and we'll probably go with, like, the ones that are the best are the Koreans, to stick with tradition.
Does Raz know which ones are the Koreans?
Do you, Raz? Do you know which ones are
I
Koreans?
think he muted his
I have no clue. I actually this is the first time I'm looking
You
at this
can't
team. I know
just
that
look at them, Kelsey, and tell the difference between Chinese and Korean.
Okay, the image quality is really bad, and you don't get close-ups of their faces at
we-
all. So, like, I
Let's
have no...
actually tell a story. I have to tell this story. So, Kelsey has spent so much of her time looking at Asian players. Korean, Chinese, maybe some Japanese if she's watching the LJL cast, whatever.
this is your job, Kelsey.
She was watching... Who was it? It had to be Elements.
It was Elements, yes.
She was watching Elements, and Shook was on screen. And she goes, when did Tab start jungling for Elements?
They look so similar, and it's sad because I've seen so much EU this split. Like, I've seen almost every single EU game that I was like...
I was reading about this, Kelsey. It's totally fine. It's actually a
Sure.
psychological thing that happens in our brain because
What?
we have specific parts of our brain that's recognized and in charge of people's faces, like recognition of people's faces. There's like a specific part in our brain that does that for us. And so obviously, as a you are white, most of the people that you would see around you would happen to be of your own race, and so you build up this muscle of being able to recognize white people and the difference between them, which is why, you know, that racist stereotype of, you know, why do Asians all look the same, or I can't tell the difference between this classification of people. But since you spend so much of your time looking at Asian people, now you can't do it to your own race. You can't tell the difference between white people.
I'm gonna put this out there. I see white people every day, but I still have the same problem.
This is actually why I dyed my hair pink. It was to help Raz tell the difference between Kelsey and I.
I thought he got you and Drexen confused. I didn't know it was me. Okay.
Where's our Asian guy? Can he come back?
Anyway, that joke aside, I can't, like, I don't know which ones are the Koreans on Showtime, but Flies is the top laner. Go E is my favorite. He's the juggler. Point is the mid laner. Noob AD and Noob support are the bottom lane. And Noob AD plays AD carry, just in case that was confusing. Yeah.
So anyway, Showtime is a team that isn't even qualified for LSPL right now.
And?
That managed to make it to the 3rd place match against Snake.
Wait, does that mean that they're a top team in China?
Please, no, stop this.
No, let's use the same logic that everyone applies to World Elite. Because I want to be consistent.
They only beat ADG, which, frankly, ADG...
Well, after... Also, we need to clarify that in order to even get into this bracket, they had to 2-0 King through the qualifier.
So
there's something challenging.
The only team of significance they've really beaten is King. But they did take a single game. They won a best of one against Invictus Gaming. And the other 2 games are actually close. So...
Yeah. But this is actually a first. Like, usually it's LSPL teams that are kind of like, oh, wow, okay, these are prospects to be good in the LPL. It's not teams that are, like, aren't even in the LSPL that do these kind of things. So that's what makes it a little more interesting.
Yep. So...
Yep.
So the point is that they'll be interesting to watch in LSPL. Not that they're going to be like an amazing LPL team, but that they'll probably make LSPL and they'll be kind of fun to watch in LSPL.
You know, that league that no one cares about or watches.
Wow.
Except Raz.
I care about it sometimes.
Raz, this is
Just
when you
that
come back
Raz is
to
like
me and
my
you're just
info
like, no, this is why you need to care about LSPL.
No, friends, you need to care because how else will you see the shitty teams coming into the LPL?
Let's be honest.
It's just...
To be fair, there's so much more money that's pumped into the LSPL that's pumped into probably the LCS.
And now
say
there's
that.
now there's like an actual league that's like kind of a challenger league below.
Breaking one of the contracts of an LSPL player can cost up to $125,000.
But anyway, the point is that there's called a Hero City, so there now are technically 3 leagues in China.
They just look at the world, see their league. It's like, all right, they're copying us with the LSPL thing. We gotta
stay ahead. We need a 3rd one.
Oh god.
Yeah, and then also the thing with IET is that for the first time in 2 years, basically, there's a World Elite versus Invictus Gaming final.
Yeah.
Which is a very, very classic
not 2
matchup
years.
brand-wise, but obviously the players...
It's a year and a half.
Oh, it's a year and a half? Oh, yeah. I just, like, thought 2013, and I was like, okay.
So Massio Cup Season 1 was the end of 2013. So.
Yeah. But yeah, it's nothing like overly crazy. Like, it's one of those things where you kind of like hype up the narrative more than it probably should be, just because none of the players are the same at all. But
it's kind of like if there was ever a CLG versus TSM final again.
Yeah, but we all know it's never happened.
Except there's
That's
still like
cool.
TSM members that are original to that roster.
Yeah, with World Elite and IG, it's just, well, there's Kid.
Yeah, no, IG, I mean, would be original to that roster.
Is
Yeah.
it only Kid?
Kid and
No,
Zatai.
it's Kid and Zatai.
Oh, right, because Zatai's on now. He's the top laner for IG. Okay.
Zatai's the top laner.
Maybe not in the same spots, but, you know.
And Kitties was on the roster the last time there was an IG versus WE face-off, so
Okay.
kind of grandfathered in.
Anything else that we need to discuss?
I wanted to do a quick, what was your favorite moment of 2015 LPL spring thing? But if you guys don't want to do that, then fine.
Didn't we already kind of... Oh, we did best player. Can we talk about the most annoying thing and disappointing thing? Is that
for
people
next
that only fucking watch international tournaments still say, like, in interviews and stuff, even, like, popular ADs, that Uzi is, like, the best AD carry they've ever seen.
Like,
if they watch any fucking OMG games at all this split, holy shit. It was,
I think
like,
the answer is that
so bad
they
at
look
the
at the fucking post-game thread, and that's it. That's all they
Uzi
ever
is
look
so good. He's the best AD carry in the world.
It was like, I mean, he's always been buffed at Worlds and domestically not as strong, but that was, like, amplified times, like, 10 with OMG the split. It was bad.
Yeah.
Okay, next week's episode, we're doing our awards and our best of. So I don't know if you want to do it this time, Kelsey, because we need something to talk about in between the break of the 2 splits. But that was what I had planned.
That and MSI, yeah. That makes sense.
That's fine.
Okay, so next
Let's
week,
just
we're going to
get
do our
on the
best
side
of and our awards. We'll release it early so people will come knowing what to expect.
Yep.
Yep. Everyone good?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
everyone wave.
I'm waving.
Hi,
Wait,
shout out to all of our
motherfuckers.
things that were introduced
Oh,
by.
right.
We already did it. I already did it for
You
everybody.
did the introduction. Score Esports.
Did it.
Raz does the Chiefs and some stuff.
Go
Sips in
Team
bed.
Dignitas.
Yeah.
Team 8.
Congrats on else.
We'll talk
It's
about it
an
anyway.
ongoing clusterfuck.
So the three events is we had Invictus Gaming versus Snake. And then we had LGD versus EDG, and obviously we now know who's going to qualify for MSI for the Chinese region. We actually know all the qualifying teams for MSI. It's going to be TSM, Fnatic. I'm totally
Not
spacing.
Korea.
Oh, that's right. Korea hasn't finished their playoffs yet. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They're basically
China
SKT and G from Korea. and then-
AHQ, the Turkish team, the
Sheepisk.
Shikbisk. I can never.
Sheepisk.
And EDG, we don't know who
One of
it's
them
going to be
turkey
from
burgers.
Korea. Who's you guys' money on for Korea?
My money's on GE, but I want SKT to win. So, but I think
Same.
GE has a higher chance of winning.
I think it's going to be SK Telecom.
I'm with Kelsey. I think it's going to be SKT.
I think it's
As long as
GE,
they use
but
Faker and I don't know. They only ever used Faker and Bengi together though in the semifinals. So I don't know if they'll use Faker and Tom together.
They used
If I remember
Faker and
correctly.
Tom together for one game during
this
against
Yeah.
UK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was awkward to watch. Anyway, let's talk about China. Where do you guys want to start? Do you want to start with the finals? Actually, let's not go to the finals. Let's leave that. Let's go IG versus Snake.
Yep.
So, how did we get here? For those who didn't follow it, how did we get to IG versus Snake? And why was this match important, Kelsey? I think you actually wrote an article about why I should actually give a fuck.
So this match is actually the least important in terms of increments for the amount of points the teams get to qualify for Worlds.
Didn't I just ask you why this match was important? You immediately opened up your statement with, this
Well,
match doesn't matter because...
She's opening
Well,
with the butt.
I'm saying that it has the least incremental difference. Like the fourth place team gets 80, and the third place team gets 100, as opposed to like 100 to 200 for second and third, and then 200 to 300 for second and first. But the thing is, okay, that both Invictus Gaming and Snake had kind of like a really lame quarterfinal, and then they just got crushed in the semifinal. So like they wanted to prove that they were good, and that was like the point of this series.
Who? Snake and Invictus were both
They
trying
both
to...
got 3-0'd in the semifinals, yeah.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Apologies for the delay. We had to make a reschedule, but here we are. China Talk, episode 41. I actually believe we're back on track with our episode numbers. So this is actually 41. Again, I'm Froskin. I'm going to be your host. Joining me is going to be our panelist. It's going to be Kelsey Moser from The Score, Drexen from Esports Heaven, and Razzleplasm. Raz, what are you doing now?
Laying in bed. That's what I'm doing.
That is the best
No, I'm just
occupation.
doing quite a bit of things.
We made Raz get out of his sick bed. He's actually dying right now, but we don't care. We have no consideration for his feelings
And
or his health.
And that's because we have a lot to talk about.
The truth
So-
is, we tried to find
EDG.
someone for the fourth box, but we couldn't find anyone. So
We
we
couldn't
just need
find
to answer
anyone
the
that
call.
fit. We were just like, do we want pyrotechnics? Like, no.
This is basically EDG.
Basically. I tried to find a picture of Palm, but it was just taking way too long to Google search. I would think that my Google would know my habits by now, but it kept giving me chess pieces. I was like, this is bullshit. Anyway. Big news in China. We had our third place match, as well as our finals match between LGD and EDG. We also had the IET tournament, which was a clusterfuck. But I'm sure
Yeah,
we'll
they both got 3-0'd in the semifinals, and Vici Gaming kind of choked. And King gave Snake a run for their money, but their compositions were awful, so everyone knew that like Snake was still going to win. So it's just
They're
kind of
saying
like,
they're
this
awful
is
'cause
the
they came
one.
5 times.
They had no wave clear, but you know, neither did EDG in the finals, so whatever.
Okay, who won? And why did they win?
Invictus Gaming won.
Okay,
And
are we surprised?
no,
Why not?
because Snake team fights, and what does Snake do when they get out team fought? The answer is nothing. So,
That's actually a really good summary of the whole
if
series.
Invictus Gaming can team fight better than Snake, Snake has really no course of action to turn to.
And not to mention, like, they felt like their drafts were fucking terrible, too. Like, they had nothing they could do to punish kids' jinx, like, right from the get-go. Like, they had nothing to engage in.
What is this an issue of drafting? Why do you think Snake's weak in drafts?
Well, because they didn't have an answer to an immobile carry, and Kid was able to, like, just go ham on his jinx, like, right off the bat. And I was like, okay, it's weird. I mean, I guess...
Didn't
Is that an
IG
issue
get, like...
of champion pool, though? Is that an issue of just the coaching staff? Like, do they just not have an answer in their respective, like, capabilities of picking a certain champion, or did they just not pick it?
I don't think it's entirely... I don't think it's entirely based on champion pool, but it is obviously a problem. Like, Baka's still only good on one champion. And Crystal only performs well when the team, like, works around him on, like, 2 or 3 champions, so it is part of the issue, but I don't know, I think a lot of it is just lack of insight into IG, and I also don't think they expected Kid to pull out champions like that, so I guess that could also be part of it. It was just, like, it was just really unintuitive.
The other thing is they did have some lockdown, but the thing is that IG is usually good about picking, like, really well to protect. Like, they got the Janna-Gragas combo. Like, why do you ever let that through? You know what I mean? If you pick Janna and Gragas, you can pick whatever you want with that, and they'll be super safe.
Why do you think that's so strong?
You have 2 forms of disengage, and, like, Gragas is a massive beef wall.